Lord Mayher, 1926. On Saturday, July 10th, 1926, the first anniversary of Baba's silence was observed. The school and dispensary were closed, and the Mandali fasted with Baba for 24 hours. Meanwhile, from 9 to 10 in the morning, Baba sat near the Duni. Two or three of the Mandali reported that they had dreamt about Babajan's demise. Baba explained in response, "From today, Babajan has ceased all her spiritual activities and duties, which have been transferred to others. Within 10 to 20 days, or at the most 200 days, she will give up her body. After that, for 2 or 3 days, there will be great upheavals, chaos, and confusion in the world. And after that, there will be a period of peace and spiritual advancement. Soon there will be a change in my lifestyle as well." At 3 in the afternoon, the men's fast was broken at Shahani's house. Shortly afterward, Sadashiv M. Borkar, 52, of Ahmednagar, arrived for Baba's darshan with boys from a Nath ashram, an orphanage he had founded and managed. After becoming silent, there was a marked increase in the number of discourses given by Meher Baba, and also in the intensity of his daily activities and physical labors. Baba's activities at the time consisted of grinding millet, bathing the children and washing their clothes, finishing the writing of his book, rendering service to the poor and afflicted, hearing the complaints of the lower class villagers and aiding them in their difficulties, overseeing all the arrangements in Meherabad, paying particular attention to and overseeing the Mandali, giving darshan to thousands and advising them about their problems, and attending to daily correspondence. Not only were all these tasks time-consuming, but accomplishing them in total silence was truly remarkable. Although Meher Baba expressed anger and forgiveness, displeasure and happiness, seriousness and humor, he showed perfect control and never let a word escape. He would wholeheartedly participate in all games, but even at the height of excitement, he never uttered a sound. That afternoon at Shahani's home, when Baba was giving out prasad, Waman Keshav Subnis, one of the residents of Meherabad, was somehow overlooked. Later, at the time of the bhajan singing in the evening, Baba was observed to be looking at him in a peculiar way. And before retiring for the night, Subnis somehow missed offering Baba obeisance. At 10 o'clock that night, he suddenly became hysterical. He cried out, "Sadguru Meher Baba Maharaj Ki Jai," and repeated, "Baba, Baba, Baba," and began slapping his face. The Mandali tried to restrain him, but pushing them aside, he kept slapping himself and shouting loudly for Baba. He wept, voicing complaints about being deprived of Baba's prasad and darshan before going to sleep. He remained in this frenzied state until midnight, when he finally calmed down and became quiet. The next day, July 11th, the master announced a new routine for himself and the Mandali for the next 7 months, from 12th July 1926 to 7th February 1927. It was as follows. Baba will stop taking solid food once every 24 hours from 13 July, remaining only on milk, tea, or dal. Each of the Mandali who are sharing in his fast should also remain on liquids. He will not partake in any sports. Baba will not give discourses. For inspections, Baba will come to Meherabad once or twice a week, and for the most part, will stay in a fixed place in seclusion. Accordingly, Baba began his fast the following day, and during most of the day stayed alone near the table cabin by the Duni. During darshan on Wednesday, the 14th July, a seeker arrived and entreated Baba for God realization. Baba ordered him to sit in a small hut opposite Baba's table under a neem tree for 1 year and to eat only once every 24 hours. The man agreed to Baba's instructions, but while he was sitting before Baba, scarcely 15 minutes having passed, Baba asked him, "What are you thinking?" He replied, "I would like to go stay in Shirdi instead." Baba gave him permission and he promptly left. In the Makan on 16 July, Rustam asked about the circle, and Baba explained about the periodic coming of the avatar and their circles. Every master has to perfect his circle, whose members are those who have a very long past connection with him and who flock around him in the age when he is to give them realization. Those who drink the real juice, knowledge, are very few, and only 1 out of crores becomes a master. Then why strive for such a rare chance? Rustam asked. It is like winning a lottery. There is hardly a chance. Because with me, the result is sure, though slow, Baba replied. You do get what you strive for. In the end, it is the ultimate aim and object of one and all to find truth. Rustam. Then if it is sure to come to all, why strive for it? It will come of itself, Rustam said. Your striving and struggling bring you nearer and nearer to the goal. Even though you fail 99 times, if the last 100th effort brings you to the point of receiving the Master's grace, your labor is amply justified. From the moment of finding a guru, you have been pushed continually towards the goal by the secret working and powers of the guru. For example, look at the rays of the sun penetrating through the roof of the makan. Compared to the space of the room, which is dark, the cracks themselves are very small, and the rays they allow inside are few. Such is the condition of people in the universe. Most of them are utterly ignorant of divine knowledge. Only a few have received some of the light from a realized one. They are like the rays, but these rays are not the sun, which is real knowledge. On the night of 19th July, a man was returning to Ahmednagar after having taken Baba's darshan. About a mile from Meherabad, he heard cries coming from a ditch by the road. Approaching nearer to investigate, he saw 3 bodies in the darkness. Frightened, he ran back to Meherabad at 9 p.m. and returned with some of the Mandali and Maruti Patil, the village headman, in Rustam's car. The Mandali found the 3 persons covered with blood, the apparent victims of a robbery. One was dead, and the other 2 were on the verge of dying, moaning in pain. Rustam rushed to the railway station to inform the police, and after returning, directed the 2 wounded men to be taken to the hospital at Meherabad. In spite of the opposition of the other Mandali, who were concerned about possible legal implications, Rustam took full responsibility for the action and brought the bleeding men to Meherabad. Not only did the Mandali severely rebuke him, but when he arrived at Meherabad, Baba also disapproved of his action, as he did not wish to be involved in any way with the police. Rustam's actions are like hiring a burning bungalow, Baba fumed. Later, the police arrived. The situation was explained to them, and they commended Rustam's humanitarian gesture. The next morning, both victims were transferred to a hospital in Ahmednagar, where they eventually recovered. Afterward, Baba praised Rustam's determination in the face of so much opposition. It was decided, in view of the coming holidays, that a police guard should be posted near the scene of the crime, a notorious spot where muggers were known to hide. Some of the Mandali were also appointed as night watchmen. While discussing the murder, The subject turned to death, and Baba made these comments. Okay, next reader, Eugene, I believe, right?
Why should we Sadgurus feel for the shocking wounds and mutilations that are horrible to look at? Do you feel anything while killing an ant, gnat, or mosquito? Not a bit. Do you feel bad when a hen's neck is being cruelly wrung by a butcher? No. Then why fear and shiver at this human murder, the wounds, blood, and pain? The ant, fly, hen, and goat all have lives as humans have. Why feel for one and not the other? Just as you consider the lives of these animals quite insignificant as compared to human beings, so do the Sadgurus consider human deaths trivial and insignificant. For them, the whole world is a small thing, just a point. Then why worry for a man being dead? Besides, to Sadgurus, the dropping of the body is no death at all. It is simply dropping one form and taking another. The body is a coat covering the soul. Locks and locks of such bodies fall daily, and the same number take bodies again simultaneously. The Sadgurus are really dead to illusion, and so are really living in eternity. So what is this dropping of human bodies and changing coats to them? The mind must die, not the body. The body may die 1,000 deaths. The Atma, soul, is there, alive. It never dies. Even when body and mind both are dead in the realization state, the Atma is there, living forever. The body lives, works, and suffers for the mind, and the mind lives for the soul. For example, take the cloth to be the body to be the mind, and the mind to be the soul. Now suppose a young, well-dressed maiden comes and stands before you. As long as the clothes cover all parts of her body, the mind pays no special attention to her and is checked. But suppose a small part of her clothing flutters in the wind, uncovering her legs for a moment. It immediately affects the mind, and several undesirable ideas begin to surge in it. Now, what did this? The cloth, the body. Similarly, as cloth is to the body, so the body is to the mind. That is, the mind is affected by the body, as the body is affected by the cloth. July 21st and 22nd were two Hindu religious festivals. To celebrate these holy days, Baba was taken in a procession to the shrine of the saint, Buaji Bua, at the temple in Arangaon. That night at Mehrabad, 700 people were fed until 1 a.m. On the 23rd, Baba stopped his fast on liquids only, stating, "I will eat one meal every 24 hours and drink water and tea between 3 to 8 p.m. Baba's lighting the hearth to inaugurate the new kitchen the previous December began to have its effect on the Hindu mandali. A meeting was called that night to discuss a proposal that all the men should eat the same type of food and sit together during meals as a group instead of separately. The Orthodox Hindus and the progressive Muslim and Zoroastrian mandali became locked in forceful arguments. To end the arguing, Baba decided that the separate cooking and meals should be continued. He stated, "To me, all religions are equal, and the wrangles over religious dogmas and practices are mere exercises in futility. All religious customs are mere drill and routine. Still, the religious feelings of each other should be scrupulously respected, and under no circumstances should the susceptibilities of anyone be injured. On the contrary, a staunch follower of any religious practices should be encouraged and accorded all facilities." Baba ended the discussion calling it a Garudi meeting.
Rudy means one who removes the poisonous effects of a snake bite by incantation.
His decision satisfied the Hindus. The lamp of awareness was still not lit in their hearts, though the master was trying to light it. In view of the recent events, the mandali were on edge and especially alert during the night. Near midnight on 23 July, Bar Soap heard something moving near the hospital and whistled his danger signal. The mandali awoke from sleep and ran outside with sticks in their hands. Baba too had woken up and seen what was causing the noise. Deciding to play a joke on the mandali, he warned them, "Be careful, a thief is on that side. I just heard his voice." The group cautiously went to the place where Baba pointed. There they found two horses grazing. Like the incident of Gustaji blowing his whistle because of a rat, the thief was hunted and found. On Sunday, 25 July 1926, Guru Purnima, the full moon day, was observed. Baba admonished the mandali, "Like innocent children, lay your head on the feet of your master and take an oath that none of you will leave me until I break my silence." That night, Baba played the dholak for half an hour, accompanied by fervent chanting of Vital. the Marathi name of God. To those singing, Baba remarked, unless you are wholly and solely Vital's and cry out to him as a child cries out to its mother, Vital is not likely to hear you. Remember this, or otherwise your crying will only be an exercise for your vocal cords. A local devotee, Raya Maruti Sakhare, a mandapwala, one who erects canopies, gave a special party to all the Meherabad residents at 4 p.m. on the 26th. All gathered at the Sai Darbar, where tea was served, and Baba distributed sev, bujia, and jalebis. Before doing so, he first struck a match and threw it into his spittoon. On the evening of 27 July, the master's discourse was about the spiritual duty of a Sadguru in relation to Maya. After his realization of God, solely for the sake of fulfilling his duty to the universe, the Sadguru comes back. This is due to Maya, though he is totally free of Maya. He has to work in Maya to make others like him. And that is why, in a sense, he is dependent on Maya. For example, when you drink tea, you use a cup and saucer. But as soon as the tea is finished, you set aside the cup and saucer, meaning one has to resort to certain means to do or experience something. Once the work is done, the means are not necessary. In exactly the same way, this human body, which is deemed an indispensable means for the attainment of perfection and the realization of God, is to be set aside and given up after that realization and that attainment of perfection, as it is then not at all necessary. Similarly, only when there is a need to make others as perfect as they are themselves, the realized ones, the Sadgurus, avatars, and charge men, have to assume human form for the sake of this duty. As soon as their duty is over, they give up the body. On Thursday, 5 August 1926, while holding a discussion with Nusserwan Sata and Viankatesh Sridhar Kaka Chinchorkar, brackets, devotees from Ahmednagar, the master explained to them about desires and spiritual independence versus political independence. Baba ended by emphasizing real bhakti, devotion, means to die 1,000 times a day. Thus, a poet has said, If you have the longing to receive the wound of an arrow, then first create a heart that would venture on such a dangerous game, that would bear its hardships, and that is bold enough to endure its sufferings. This quotation expresses not only the literal and outer meaning that one should create a heart, but also the inner sense that the sufferings of the wound should be borne without anyone else knowing it, quietly, without the slightest murmur or sign of pain.
Okay, thank you, Eugene. Next
Baba.
reader, who is it, Wendy?
Yeah.
Okay, Wendy, you're up.
There should be absolutely no outward show, even though one may be suffering from deadly wounds and cut into pieces from inside. Ah, what burning, what love, what desire. The terrible heat of the sun is as nothing compared to that burning sensation. All these burnings and other such ordeals are on the part of the independent seeker of truth, who has not found a guru or a guide. Those who have found a guru, however, have nothing to do except dedicate themselves to him with complete blind submission. Even if the orders of the master seem incomprehensible or even repellent, you have to carry them out with bowed heads. Do as the Sadguru tells you to do, even if his instructions are against your will or beyond your understanding. This is the easiest way to God. For if one at all desires to reach this goal of truth, one must burn and consume oneself in that desire without any further consideration of mind, body, or soul. And this is most difficult. You are lucky to have found such a good Sadguru in me. On 7th August, the topic of conversation turned to the master's very distinct hand movements, which he had begun making in July. In the beginning of his silence, Baba would write on the ground with his forefinger. Then it became Baba's characteristic to repeat a certain movement of his hand in the air, even while giving a bath to the schoolboys, reading, conversing, or listening to someone. At such moments, he would appear unaware of his surroundings. It looked as if he were weaving invisible patterns in the air. Also during this period, in 1926, Baba's moods were considerably calmer and milder in temperament compared to his former fieriness in Manzalimi, when he was a living fire and would often slap or beat the Mandali if they disobeyed him. That night at the Duni, Baba discussed the current wanderings of the Pasni Maharaj and Hazrat Babajan. While I was traveling all over India and Persia, Maharaj kept himself at Sakori. But now that I am staying in Meherabad, Maharaj is traveling from one place to another. Babajan is the doyen of Sadgurus, and as in the case of important dignitaries being received by the nobility and higher echelon of society, Babajan was always accorded to the highest honors while wandering from place to place. the highest persons from among the spiritual hierarchy used to present themselves at such times. As in the worldly way, when she was about to move out of her headquarters, spiritual wires used to hum, inviting all the top members of the spiritual hierarchy to be in her presence when she came to their town or city. It is said that Tajuddin Baba, who generally would move about naked, once put on a dhoti when he went to pay his respects to Babajan.
Footnote. Hazrat Babajan was referred to as the doyen of masters. In this sense, she was the eldest master or the senior member of the spiritual hierarchy.
Nazarwan would come for Baba's darshan every Sunday. On 8th of August, he came as usual to Mehrabad, but his bicycle broke down. Baba and 4 of the Mandali accompanied him on foot to the railway station and returned at 9:30 that night in Atanga. The master's love and kindness filled Nazarwan's heart, and the entire Sata family worshiped Baba as God incarnate. Baba became a frequent visitor to the Satha residence. Akbar Press and Nasirwan's brother, Pilu Mama, Mary J. Mama, and Jemai Mama used to come to Mehrabad with their sister, Gulamazi. One afternoon, when Gulamazi came to see Baba, he was busy grinding grain. Baba beckoned to her to help him grind, and she immediately complied. While the flour was being ground, a terrific windstorm swept through Mehrabad, tearing the tin roofs off the buildings and sending them flying. A dust storm followed. It was evening, and the winds were still swirling. Gulamasi began wondering how she would be able to return to Ahmednagar. Baba looked at her and, picking up a metal pot beside him, flung it forcefully away. Immediately, the storm subsided and the weather became normal. Gulamasi was amazed, and when she returned to Ahmednagar, she reported this incident to hear her brothers revealing the master's power over nature. Kaka Shri
Akushru.
Akushru, Afsari, is that the second one? Sorry, had first met Baba in Bombay during 1924 and wished to stay permanently with him. A year later, Baba called him to Mehrabad, and he began living with the Mandali. He was doing night duty at the hospital, and he was also given permission to write something about Baba in Persian.
Afsari had been a gold medalist university student in Persian in Iran before migrating to India.
At this time, Meherabad was infested with snakes and scorpions. One day, an unusually long snake was killed near the post office, and Baba came to see it. Afsari picked up the dead snake to show it to Baba, but Baba gestured to him to discard it and then ordered him to wash his hands 24 times. Watchdogs were necessary to guard the property.
Okay, thank you, Wendy.
Hey, Baba.
And who's up next here? Rainey, go ahead.
The silence begins, 1926. During this period, Baba expressed the need for a new watchdog. Madhav Rao, a Meherabad resident, brought his uncle's dog to Meherabad, but after a few days Baba ordered Anna 104 to return to its owner in Ahmednagar. The Mandali were in favour of keeping the dog, but they remained quiet, respecting Baba's wish. When Anna 104 took the dog back, the reason behind Baba's sending it away was made known. Madhav's aunt told Anna that she missed the dog and hadn't been in favour of it being taken to Meherabad in the first place. Her husband had even written Madhav and Baba about it, but Madhav had felt embarrassed and did not show the letters to Baba. Age, or over the ages, was commented. A God-conscious master possesses a universal mind. What difference did it make whether Baba read the letters or not? No matter ever remained hidden from him. He knew every moment what every person in the world was doing and thinking, and also that each one would do or think after thousands of years. Meher Baba's every act was an expression of infinite kindness. On Tuesday, 10th August 1926, the Parsi New Year was celebrated. All the Mandali awakened early and bathed at 5 o'clock. The women Mandali gave Baba a ceremonial bath. Afterwards, Baba applied attar, a scented oil, to each of the men, and they had milk tea and grapes for breakfast. Cricket matches were held throughout the day. 2 days later, Arjun, the director of the school, fell ill and was unable to work. So for some days, Baba assumed Arjun's duties and looked after the children's meals, bathed them, and did their laundry. Zoroaster's birthday was celebrated on 15th August 1926. Baba sometimes explained about the past avatars to the Mandali. On the 16th, he revealed about Prophet Muhammad. Infidels knocked out the teeth of Prophet Muhammad, and he did not let out even a single sigh. As masters, our ways are quite opposite to the ways of the world. We outwardly harass those who love us, and we do nothing to those who despise us. We nourish our enemies and kill our friends. Muhammad was one of us, and his teeth were broken by stones. Look at what happened to Jesus. He was crucified. We crush the eyeballs of our lovers underneath our heels and ignore our foes. We mercilessly tyrannize our lovers. We even murder them. But no one has the right or the daring to ask us why we do it. When one is in contact with a Sadguru, yoga is meaningless and totally useless. What is the use of fasting for even 100 years to attain God? What is the use of dying a physical death for God? Just remember my one instruction. Remain bowed. Remain bowed. Submit to my wish. You have to become like the dust beneath my feet. Do not desire occult powers. They're obstacles on the path. Take a spider, for instance. It is all right as long as it remains still. But the moment it starts weaving a web, it gets so entrapped it cannot free itself. The more it tries, the more tangled it becomes in its own web. The following day, a neatly dressed yogi who spoke English arrived at Meherabad. He bowed to Baba and prayed for his divine help. Baba directed him to stay at Meherabad and then quoted this strange couplet in Gujarati. Matla ghatla, gotla satla, watla chotla aur potla. Baba's remark implied that for begging purposes, a yogi should not possess anything more than a cloth bag and a staff. He should not accumulate things, should avoid all comfort, and should not wear long hair for the sake of show. He should be attached to nothing and follow the precept, the wandering yogi, the flowing water. However, after only 11 days, the yogi wished to leave Meherabad. On Baba's inquiring the reason, the person replied that the food there was not good. Disappointed by his attitude, Baba allowed him to depart. Watching him go, Baba remarked regretfully, "Came for God, left for bread." Ghani and Ramju had arrived in Meherabad on the 17th, and at 9:30 at night on 19 August, a heated discussion on religion and Baba's explanations about the path to God took place between Sayed and Sahib. Ramju and Ghani and Ramju had arrived at Meherabad on the 17th, and at 9:30 at night on 19 August, a heated discussion on religion and Baba's explanation about the path to God took place between Sayed Sahib, Ramju, and Ghani at the school building. Baba happened to come by in the middle of that debate and found them arguing. Sayed Sahib claimed that when he read the Quran or the Hindu scriptures, he found them similar to the explanations given by Baba, while Ramju argued that they were not similar at all. Unable to determine who was right, they appealed to Baba, and Baba said, "My explanations are quite different from the scriptures of any religion, and they have nothing to do with the Shariat aspect of religions." Shariat. If we find any illumination anywhere in scriptures, it is in the Hindu Shastras and Vedanta. But they too are only a shadow of my explanations. None of the great masters in the past has given such explanations as I have. They were great masters, great avatars, and they realized so many souls. However, what they gave or left to the world was only Shariat, sweet syrup. They only gave internal knowledge, gnosis, to their close disciples who were very few. What they said and what was written down into books was only the knowledge and rules of rituals and ceremonies, appealing to the ordinary minds of the time. The only grave error that the mass of humanity commits is that they take the Shariat as the goal of realization instead of the way to it. While what I give as the explanation of the knowledge, that is beyond the scope of the ordinary intellect to grasp and understand. Even though these explanations are mere shadows of the real knowledge, they are beyond mind to follow. What I explain is a subject beyond the comprehension of the mind, and it is given only to those who are prepared to digest it, not to everybody. For all can neither grasp it, nor tolerate it, nor even bear to hear it. For example, I say you are all God, whereas Islam and all other religions claim you are the servants of God. I say Muhammad was fully conscious of God incarnate, but the Mohammedans say he was only sent as a messenger. The same is the case with Zoroaster and Christ. I say that all your clapping, bhajan singing, tying the Parsi kusti, and praying namaz are merely drills. Only take one name of God. Give up anger, give up lust and greed. This is all that is necessary. But the orthodox section of any religion would blow out my brains if they heard me uttering such words. And I pity them all. Why? Because they are so narrow-minded, so shallow in their vision, and because they do not wish nor try to come out of this state of mind. I say to you, do not be cowards like them, fearing hell and the anger of God, for accepting these truths which are real truth. The very foundation of all my explanations is sanskaras, which no religion has explained. I have put it so clearly and logically. Nowhere are sanskaras explained so elaborately or so eloquently.
Okay, thank you, Rainey. Rosalie, I believe you're up.
Ghani and Ramju left for their homes in Lanavla on 21st August. That same evening at 7 o'clock, Baba was sitting in the Makan in a very pleasant and expansive mood. From among those sitting around him, his eyes fell on Gopal Swami. Gopal Swami had come to stay at Meherabad in January 1926 and had agreed to follow Baba's orders for 1 year. Under Baba's direction, he was observing silence for certain hours each day and was also instructed to repeat God's name while sitting under a tree by the road. Baba asked him, "Tell me what you most desire." Gopal said, "Nothing." Baba pressed him, "Go on, ask me, ask for anything. Tell me your desires now and I will grant them." Gopal kept quiet and only smiled at Baba. "Speak out," gestured Baba. "Empty your head and heart before me. Now is the time. I, of my own accord and will, am asking you to have your desires fulfilled. Now is the time when I am in that mood." The other Mandali too began encouraging Gopal to speak up. Gopal finally let out one word: "Mukti," liberation. Baba smiled and gestured, "Granted." Then Baba remarked to the Mandali, "Gopal is a very good and sincere devotee. He is the only determined and staunch keeper of my orders. Out of the many yogis, sadhus, fakirs, and ascetics who have come seeking spiritual advancement, he is the only one who has survived and not run away on one pretext or another. He obeys me without question and willingly accepts whatever food is offered to him. Baba continued, I will fulfill your wish and in this birth. Testing him, Baba asked, but suppose I were to give you the form of a donkey, a leper, or a cripple in the next? Gopal humbly replied, as you wish, Baba, if it would be your pleasure. Baba then asked Shivnas Vibhuti Gademali, a short bearded Swami, who was also staying at Meherabad and following similar instructions, to tell how he happened to come to Meherabad. He related that while he was visiting the tomb of a saint in Gangapur, he had a dream in which he heard a voice urging him, go towards Dond and your work will be done. The next morning, as he started for Dond and passed through Aurangawan, he decided to have Meher Baba's darshan. From that day on, Vibhuti remained at Meherabad. Gopal Swami then related how he had first come to Meherabad. He had previously visited Upasani Maharaj at Sakori and Narayan Maharaj at Kedgaon. Once while he was in Dond, someone told him that another Sadguru lived at Aurangawan. He began walking there and along the way felt very thirsty. He saw an old villager drawing water from a well and approached him. The old man talked with him at length. When he found out that he was in search of a master, he offered Gopal a cactus fruit, saying, this is the food which Sadgurus eat. Gopal unhesitatingly ate the peculiar fruit. Whereupon the man said, go to Aurangawan and nowhere else. He is there. Go to him and your desire will be fulfilled. The master who will guide you and give you what you want is in Aurangawan. Gopal followed the man's advice and met Meher Baba the next day. Hearing this story, Baba remarked, do you know who that old man was? It was me in disguise. The next morning, finding out that one of the boys had disappeared from the school, Baba called the men Mandali to him at 8 o'clock and asked them why the boy had left. Baba held the director, Arjun, the monitors, and the teachers responsible, maintaining that due to their carelessness, the boy had run away. As a novel punishment, Baba ordered them to keep bitter quinine powder in their mouths without swallowing or spitting it out. When they were unable to bear the horrible taste any longer, Baba allowed them to spit it out and gave them a sweet to get rid of the taste. A week before, a letter from Babu Saikawala was read out, in which he described something that had happened to Memo. She, Daula Masi, and Shariar's sister Piroja had paid their respects to Babajan and were returning when they saw Baba seated in the Victoria. They watched as he got down and went towards a dark lane. Despite Memo's calls for him to stop, all the ladies swear that they saw Baba clearly. Babu wrote. Baba was, of course, at Meherabad at the time. Baba made no comment about the incident, but the Mandali were convinced it was something supernatural. Baba also made no comment when a second letter was received that his maternal grandmother, Golandun, had died suddenly and that his mother was ill. Masaji was sent to Pune.
No, on the 29th of August, 1926, when Shireen Mai's condition had still not improved, Baba revealed that it was a characteristic of Sadhgurus to give everything to the world, but nothing to their own family members.
When he returned to Meherabad on 23rd August, he narrated this story. Memo had gone to Hazrat Babajan with a garland of flowers one night. She wanted to put it around Babajan's neck, but when she stood before the ancient woman, Babajan asked her to garland herself with it. Memo hesitated, but persuaded by those present, she garlanded herself and then immediately took off the garland and gave it to Babajan. Merwan's photograph was kept nearby. Babajan placed the garland of flowers around it and, resting her hand on the photograph, began to weep. She told Memo, "My son will shake the whole world." And she added, "You are in for a surprise today." When Memo returned home, she heard her daughter Mani cry out. When she went to her, Mani exclaimed, "Look, a string is wrapped around my leg and won't come off. It moves." To her horror, Memo saw a small snake wrapping around Mani's leg. It quickly disappeared, and she later explained to Mani that it was not a string, but a snake. Meher Baba's masters would openly express their love and affection for him. During this period, news continued to come from Pune that Babajan would bow her head on Baba's photograph and shed tears. From Sakori's stories, we're told that Upasni Maharaj was telling his followers, "There is nothing here. Go to Merwan and Narangaon." In a similar manner, devotees who took Narayan Maharaj's darshan would be sent to Meherabad, which showed that Narayan was also publicly acknowledging Meher Baba's divinity and was frequently remembering him these days. Once during this time, Narayan Maharaj came to Meherabad. Narayan would often travel on tour throughout India. And as he was in the train going from Kedgaon en route to the north, the train was about to pass through Ahmednagar when it suddenly came to a halt. Narayan asked those circle members traveling with him what had happened. They did not know. A signal might be down or there might be an obstruction on the tracks. "No," Narayan said, "this is Meher Baba's ashram. Go look." And to their amazement, when his disciples opened the door and looked out, there was Meher Baba standing under a tree with his hands folded. Lined up by the railway tracks were many of Baba's mandali also standing with folded hands. Narayan was informed that Meher Baba was nearby, and he came out of his compartment and stood at the door of the train, silently looking at Baba.
All right, thanks, Rosalie. Ralph, would you like to read?
Yeah, I can read a little bit. Silently looking at Baba. So are we beginning this page 1704. Is that where we are?
Yeah.
Later notice. I'm looking for Rosalie's last sentence. I wasn't following along on the
Just start at the
text.
top of the page. Just start at the top of the page.
The silence begins. The Mandali stepped forward to bow to Maharaj, and a few of Maharaj's Mandali got off the train and bowed to Baba. After a few minutes, Narayan signaled to Baba, "Should I go?" And Baba waved back for him to leave. It was as if the whole incident was prearranged. As soon as Narayan settled in his compartment, the train started up again. Narayan's disciples reported that no obstruction was found, and the conductors and engineer were wondering why the train had come to a sudden halt. Narayan only smiled. It was later noticed that whenever Narayan Maharaj passed through Ahmednagar by train, it would invariably stop near Arangown for an unscheduled brief halt, and Narayan would ask his disciples if they were at Arangown. To their surprise, they would see Meherabad Hill out of the window. After a few moments, the train would mysteriously start up again. On Sunday, 29th August 1926, Baba and the Mandali went to Bishti Bagh, a garden in Ahmednagar.
Footnote: Bisti Bagh, located in the Lal Taki area of Ahmednagar, is now called Machi Bagh. Not very important.
They then visited a center for destitute persons where they had tea. One blind boy who regularly came to Meherabad for Baba's darshan was living at the center, and Baba promised to restore his sight when Baba started speaking again. A tailor named Murlidhar was from Lonavala, had recently begun staying at Meherabad. On the 29th, there was a dispute between him and Bairamji, who through Murlidhar was doing his work improperly. On the 29th, there was a dispute between him and Bairamji, who thought Murlidhar was doing his work improperly. Bairamji was so upset that he ordered Murlidhar to leave. Murlidhar went and sat under a tree until the afternoon. But eventually he went to Baba to complain about Bairamji. Baba remarked to the other Mandali present, "Both are guilty." By stopping his sewing work and leaving the shop, Murlidhar broke my order, as I had told him to stitch the clothes. Despite Bairamji's threat, he should not have stopped working. Of course, it would have been different if Bairamji had thrown him out of the shop. Baba then warned Bairamji not to dismiss anyone from work without his consent, reminding him to report any breach of his orders directly to him, Baba. On 31 August, Krishna's birthday was celebrated with a procession from the village at 10 a.m. and prasad distributed and dances by the boys at Sai Dubar. At 2 p.m., during a private meeting with a few of the Mandali at the school, Baba declared that he intended to discontinue his 1 meal a day fast, informing the Mandali that he would remain on either tea, milk, or coffee only. Okay. That's the
Okay,
end of the
Rob.
page.
You want to go ahead? Okay, Baba, thank you. Meher, would you like to read?
Ralph, check the chat again, please.
Okay.
Meher, you're muted.
Let me see if I've heard from her, Rosie. No, not, I haven't. So I don't know.
The silence begins. Baba explained that in the last stages of this fast, he would remain only on water. He remarked that at the end of his fast in February, I will be like a corpse for 70 hours. And when I rise again, I will make others rise with me. In fact, I am the corpse, but for the benefit of those in my circle, my body will really be like a cadaver for 70 hours in February. In conclusion, Baba wrote on the slate, how very fortunate are the circle members that they will get realization in the instant at that time. Before starting the fast, Baba also conveyed that he would not give discourses to the mandali or participate in the games with the children. But after 3 days, he resumed giving discourses and took part in the sports activity as usual. On Wednesday, 1st September 1926, Baba informed the mandali, from tomorrow, I will stop eating solid food for 5 or 6 months. So, with your own hands, cook various dishes for me today, since this will be my last meal. Before I break my fast, the cooks prepared a delicious meal for Baba, which was ready by noon. Baba tasted each dish and then distributed the food to the mandali. He began fasting the next day, taking only a small amount of weak tea because of the large number of residents and the large daily milk requirement. Several cows and buffaloes were kept at Meherabad and a milkman employed.
Sidebar says there was no refrigeration then, so fresh milk had to be delivered and boiled each day.
But the milk was ignorant of a master ways and
Milkman. Start again. The milkman.
but the milkman was ignorant of a master ways and kept disobeying Baba's orders not to leave the property. He continually broke Baba's orders and his health suffered. As a result, on the occasion when he became seriously ill, he pleaded for Baba's...
Wait. You missed a sentence. On one occasion when he had barely.
He suffered as a result on the occasion when he had barely broached the Meherabad boundary without Baba's permission. He became seriously ill. He pleaded for Baba's forgiveness. Baba forgave him for all the previous slips, but warned him never to leave Meherabad under any circumstance without prior permission. Due to the tension of living together, working strenuously under the master's strict instructions with sometimes minimal food, Several times, different Mandali members walked away from Meherabad, intending to leave forever. It happened with Pendu, Bairamji, and recently with Bar Soap. The others would follow, and after lengthy conversation, pursued them to return. But Bar Soap stubbornly continued to disagreed Baba's orders.
Disregard.
Disregard Baba's orders, and he left for good on 2nd September and began living in Pune. The 9th of September was the Parsi New Year. Will someone take over from now?
All right, thank you.
Thank-
Mahu, your turn.
Okay, from where the Mandali stopped?
7:30.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Page 706, 1926. At 7:30 in the morning, a triangular cricket match was played between three teams, headed by Baba, Rostam, and Chanji. And at its its conclusion, prizes were handed out. A bhajan program was held until 9 o'clock at night. After the singing, Baba suddenly announced that he desired something to eat. All were surprised because he was intending to fast for several months. Baba remarked that he would have a meal on two conditions. Quote, I will only eat certain dishes and the food has to be ready in 17 minutes. Sorry. The Mandali stopped everything and rushed to cook the food. Several men went to Shayhan's house to bring some items. Rustam barged into the women's quarters and told them that Baba wanted to eat bhajias. As they did not have any chickpea flour prepared, Naja quickly boiled some chickpea pulse while Mehera and Khurshid ground it into powder. Naja and Dolly then began frying the bhajias. Sunmasi cut the onions, and within 17 minutes, the bhajias were ready and sent to the men's side. Baba felt very happy with their efforts, though he ate only a little and distributed the rest to the Mandali. An idol of Ganesh, the elephant god, was placed inside our bar on Saturday, 11 September 1926, to celebrate the Hindu festival of Ganesh Chaturthi. Footnote.
Holiday is also called Ganpati. Ganesh is the Hindu mythological son of Shiva.
Baba was worshipped, and he personally served food to the students. The Mandali were given the duty of singing kirtan every night. Arjun, Mohan, Syed Sahib, and Vishnu would each perform, which all enjoyed. During this period, Vishnu's mother, Kakubai, and his sister, Yamuna, were staying in Meherabad. Footnote.
Kubai never returned to Pune and remained at Meherabad for the rest of her life.
Chanji went to Bombay on 11 September and returned with his brother Naroji and his family. on the 13th with a typewriter. Whenever Baba gave discourses or explanations to the boys or Mandali, Chanji would take down in shorthand what was Baba said. Later, he would write his notes in full by hand, often staying up until midnight with his compilation. The next day, he would hand Baba the written explanations for corrections. Baba would pursue them and return them with his remarks. Chanji would then type Baba's explanations in the final form. From the 11th of June, 1926, July, you're right. From the 11th of July, 1926, Chanji had been maintaining a separate diary of daily events at Meherabad, which previously Ajoba, Panduba, and Nadir Shah, Borucha had done for a certain number of days each. Footnote.
Isha Dastur was a Parsi from Pune who had been staying at Meherabad since 1925.
Thus, it is mainly due to Chanji's efforts that the record of Meher Baba's activities is bountiful. His love efforts have preserved for posterity the spirit of the beloved's divine game. On 19 September, Baba remarked, quote, "A moment of one's life spent in the company of a Sadguru is more valuable than hundreds of years of tapa japa, or repeating God's name with beads. Or, as Vivekananda said, to light a chilium clay pipe for a Sadguru is better than millions of years of meditation." Meanwhile, during this period, the women Mandali were still living in the post office building, which Baba had enclosed with a wall of bamboo screens, forming a private compound. Baba told the women to play cricket inside the compound, and he would sometimes join them. Daulat Mai's younger brother, Colonel Merwan Sohrab Irani, was a physician in the Indian Medical Corps and the highest ranking Indian officer in the British Army during the First World War. After Daulat Mai's husband's death, Colonel Irani had assumed responsibility for Daulat Mai's and her daughter, whom he dearly loved, and looked after the family's material affairs. But the colonel had been worried about Daulat Mai's contact with Upazni Maharaj and then Meher Baba, whom he feared would take advantage of his sister's devotion. When Daulat Mai and Meher moved to Meherabad, the colonel was disturbed that his sisters and her daughter were living with a guru in what seemed to be a desolate wilderness. Although the colonel was successful professionally, he had hopes that Daulat Mai and her daughter would stay with him in Pune, giving him the family life he lacked. He was bitterly disappointed when Daulat Mai refused, and he concluded that Baba had duped his sister and swindled her out of her money and property. The colonel became a fierce opponent of Meher Baba, using his power and influence to try to undermine Baba's work. It was the colonel who was responsible for publishing fictitious and misleading stories about Baba in the Parsi newspapers, which at first created suspicion among the Zoroastrian communities about Meher Baba's claim to be a God-realized master. Footnote.
Bailey served in Aden alongside Colonel Irani, who had been instrumental in releasing Bailey from the military prison in Aden when Bailey was court-martialed for embezzlement in 1917 and imprisoned until 1919. Later in Pune, the colonel asked Bailey to provide ammunition in the campaign to discredit Meher Baba, but Bailey, in spite of great need, found himself unable to provide any corroboration of the complaints the colonel was aiming at Baba.
On Monday, 20th September 1926, at 7:30 in the morning, the colonel, along with Dinshah Kapadia, a professor of mathematics at Deccan College, and his relatives, J. Kapadia, arrived at Meherabad. Rostam cordially led the gentlemen on a tour of the ashram, unaware that the colonel was his wife Frainie's maternal uncle. Rostam had heard that the colonel had actively denounced Baba for years and had written slanderous articles against him.
Okay, thank you. There's time for at least one more page. Elizabeth, would you like to read it?
Sure. 708 in 1926. When Baranji saw the group being shown around, he recognized Colonel Irani at once and informed Rustam to beware of what he said. Professor Kapadia had known Mohan Shahani, who had studied at Deccan College years before. Seeing Mohan in the ashram, Kapadia critically remarked, "It is not good for a bright lad like you to waste your time here with all this superstitious nonsense." Mohan pointedly explained to him about Meher Baba. Not impressed, Kapadia cynically asked, "Where does all the money come from for all this?" Mohan replied, "I have nothing to do with that. I only know that the poor, sick, and destitute are being served here." Colonel Irani interposed, "It is all self-advertisement, a show of false spiritual greatness." These bitter remarks set off an unpleasant argument between the Mandali and the antagonistic visitors. The Mandali stopped arguing when the colonel and Kapadia claimed that Zoroaster, Buddha, and Christ were simply ordinary men whom legend had made great. Despite all this contention, the visitors still wanted to meet the master. Baba would usually come out of his quarters early in the morning, but that day he arrived unusually late at 10:30. But when Rustam asked the men to kindly take off their shoes before entering Baba's room, they were insulted and abruptly left, despite having waited for 3 hours. It was not in the colonel's nasib, destiny, to meet the Meher Baba, to meet Meher Baba face to face, then or ever. Colonel Irani's other older sister was Frainie Masi, Padri's mother, who lived near Babajan's seat in Charbadi in Pune. The colonel was equally concerned about Frainie Masi's devotion to Babajan and her allowing her son to join Meher Baba's ashram. Padri was in a dejected mood on the morning of the colonel's visit to Meherabad and was considering leaving Meherabad. While being taken on tour of the ashram, the colonel passed by the dispensary where Padri was prescribing medicines, but they did not see each other. This was fortunate, For had Padre seen him when he was in such a depressed state, he might have left with his uncle for Pune. After Colonel Irani's departure, Baba commented about worldly-minded people. For those who are after wine, women, and wealth 24 hours a day, criticizing the truth or speaking of the truth is sheer hypocrisy. How could such people have any idea of truth when they cannot spare even a moment to think of it and are always after material wealth and happiness? The human mind is such that it makes a person adhere to his thoughts to the extent that even in the field of religion, each man thinks his is the best. The Parsis consider their religion the highest and call most other people Durband, untouchables. The Muslims are also in the same category. To them, only Islam and Muhammad are true, and all other are kafirs, unbelievers. The Christians are no better. To them, Christ is the only savior of humanity, and all other people heathens. It is regrettable that the colonel could not see me, else he would have had the lecture of his life. I would have given him a befitting reply, which would have driven out all the arrogance from his mind. However, his waiting for me for 3 hours, despite his undesirable criticism and bad intentions, will not go in vain. He will be rewarded for his unintentional pilgrimage. He and the others will definitely be benefited. When he has been to Upasni Maharaj at Sakori, the bent of his mind being what it is, he was not even granted permission to taste a drop of water from that holy place, and Maharaj would not meet him. He left, mumbling all sorts of curses. That was when he had been to Upasni Maharaj. Sorry.
Okay, I think we should stop here. We're already 2 minutes over, and we could just pick it up. I just wanted to finish what Baba's statement was there.
However, you want me to start from there?
You finished it. We
Oh,
finished.
oh.
Yeah, there's more, but it's let's stop it here. We're over the time. Right.
Marvin, I wanted to add something that I find fascinating. Baba did meet Colonel Irani reborn